Okay, welcome to the week four go to session. This is the final go to session of the month. Let's get going, okay? This session will purposely be shorter because I don't have much to go over, mostly just reminders. So let's get into those. Okay, so the main task for week four is to revise your essay. As I said in an announcement, about half of you have received feedback already. The other half of you will get it tonight or sometime tomorrow. Um, Obviously, I wish to have those graded sooner, but that still does give you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to revise. And as we'll discuss in this session, the revision project is serious and there is more to do than just revise. However, you've gotten a big chunk of the work done already when you handed in the essay draft. So, depending on how far along your draft was, I mean, you might have quite a bit of revision to do, or you might not have all that much, or you might find yourself in a pretty strong position where, yeah, you might need to make some minor adjustments here or there in the essay, but mostly you can concentrate on cleaning up sentences, making sure that APA is perfect. That still seems to be an issue. APA, I understand that it's confusing for some, but APA is one of those things that should be fixed and repaired with the revision when you hand it in. So let's talk a little bit about the revision process, okay? First, the revision and the final project, that's the same thing, okay? In past months, we used to have a more ambitious final project where students would actually take their essay and then transfer it into a different form. So we always have a few students, sometimes who are retaking the course. So some of you might even remember that old final project. Things are much simpler now. You literally are just revising your paper. But I do want us to talk a little bit about what revision means, what revision is, and what revision is not. Oh, do I want to get into this now? Or okay, let's handle it now. Yeah, your main task is to revise. Actually, let me go back to the earlier slide. If you look at the word revision, you can see that it contains the word vision, right? That's an important thing. And most of us know that this prefix here, re, means to do again or to do anew. Okay, so we're basically re looking at our paper, we're revisioning it. And that's an important distinction to revision something. True revision means looking at things anew. It doesn't mean, oh, I just need to put some commas in the right places and hand in the same paper again. No. And as I'll discuss in a bit, there's actually a pretty big penalty for doing that. So there's my first caution. Be careful. The assignment here is to revise. After all, it's worth what? I think 20% of your grade? Or is it worth 15%? Anyway, either way, it's worth a lot. So why would we assign that high of a value to this assignment if the only task was to, make some quick cosmetic changes and then hand in the same paper again? No, the task is to completely revise, which means to see things anew again. And for a lot of you, you'll probably have to do some level of that. As I just mentioned, some of you will be farther along than others. Some of you may have to completely look at your paper again. For example, if you weren't writing about perseverance at all, you ended up writing a mini biography instead of a paper that truly explored how your role model persevered. Or maybe you were just listing accomplishments, right? My role model did this, this, and this. Isn't that awesome? Doesn't that show perseverance? And then I have to point out that no, that's not perseverance. That's just listing results. That's just listing accomplishments. That perseverance is the actual story behind those accomplishments. So, yeah, if you had a major issue like that in your paper, it probably means, well, not probably, you will have to sit down and think things through again. It might require going back to the drawing board in some ways in terms of research. It means that entire paragraphs might be replaced. Some of you, though, like I mentioned, might be very, very close. Your paper might have been in very strong shape, and I might just have encouraged you to look at this particular paragraph that could be a bit stronger. Or maybe, and I said this in an announcement, but maybe the connections you were mentioning about what you learned from perseverance and how it applies to you felt a bit general, like they didn't really seem very specific and unique to you. So I might have encouraged you to really push yourself and reflect and think about what your role model's perseverance means to you and how it can be applied. And a lot of people are kind of somewhere in the middle. They have some revision too, but it's not massive. On the other hand, it's not just a matter of fixing some small things here and there and handing the paper in. Okay, so and again, you've had your peers respond to you. Hopefully, everybody got responses. Did everybody get a fair number of responses? At least two? Was there anybody who received zero peer responses during the peer review process? There's always a few, and it's depressing to hear that. But hopefully, you got feedback from at least a couple of your peers, and you're soon going to be getting feedback from me. So, yeah, one of your tasks is to sort through all that feedback, decide what makes sense, what doesn't, and then apply it, okay, as you revise. Okay, I said that to be careful. If you just hand in the same paper again, especially if I or your peers mention some pretty big picture issues that need to be fixed, or even small matters. Like it's frustrating to see uh, that I spent a lot of time maybe pointing out APA issues, or I yet again kind of provided the link to the AP walkthrough video that I created, and the final revision still comes in with those errors in place or those things that are unchanged. Yes, issues of APA and grammar are definitely lower order concerns, but they need to be fixed too when you hand in the revision. So yeah, caution number one was there is a 20-point penalty for just handing in the same paper again, or handing in pretty much the same paper again, right? Maybe you fix a tiny little thing here and there, but for the most part, the paper's just been handed in again. There's another component in addition to revising your paper to the best of your ability. You have to write a short reflection essay. And the details of what's to be included in the reflection essay can be found in the assignment sheet. Okay, I've lost my cursor. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, and the reflection basically asks you to consider some sort of big picture questions, like what you've accomplished, what struggles you encountered uh, while working on the projects, and how you overcame those obstacles. So, again, perseverance is more than just examining what your role model did. Believe it or not, all of you had to face obstacles this month as well. And if you look at the assignment sheet, I have the assignment sheet open, but it's also the pertinent stuff is on a slide here. So this is like page 2 or 3 of the assignment sheet. Yeah, you get the questions, the prompts that you need to answer. Okay, so it says add a new page to the end of your document right after the references page. Title the page reflection and write a reflection essay that addresses all of the following prompts. Okay, all of them. Some of them are pretty broad, like what were you expecting from English class this month? Did the class meet your expectations? Questions about your writing ability. Do you feel more confident or less confident now that the month is coming to a close? Describe the process you went through with your essay, how it changed throughout the month, and so on. Okay. Note that because it's telling you, for example, to add a new page at the end, to title the page reflection, yeah, you're going to write an essay. So you're not just cutting and pasting these questions and then putting your answers. Okay, you're going to take these prompts and produce an essay. Um, at this stage, I'm not grading it in terms of like organization. Obviously, it's kind of impossible unless you literally write 6 paragraphs to address each of these in its own paragraph. So it's fine if you kind of jump, maybe cover 2 of these prompts in one paragraph or 3 of them. That's okay, but it should be an essay. Okay, so we're writing incomplete sentences. We're writing in paragraphs. We're making sure those paragraphs are double spaced. That the first line of those paragraphs is indented. That just as we have on right before your essay that you handed in. Page one is the cover page, but page two is where your essay actually begins. But right before your essay begins, you have a centered title. Well, same thing with the reflection. Okay, so you're going to have a reflection center at the top. In other words, you're still following the principles of APA format, even for the reflection. So keep that in mind. Okay. And if you don't hand in the reflection essay along with your revision, there's a 20-point penalty for that. So be careful because those are probably the two biggest issues that I see. Either students basically just hand in the same paper again and they lose points for that. That's not good. Or they forget about the reflection essay and they lose 20 points for that. So please don't put yourself in that position. It's always painful for me to take off 20, sometimes 40 points just for these really, really simple things that should have been handed in. Okay, so we're talking about basically you're handing in, well, you're handing in one document, okay, but it's made up of 2 different parts, right? It's your essay with a new page added at the end, your reflection. Any questions so far? Because that's the gist of the revision assignment. I'm not getting any questions. So, okay, I'm going to take that as a good sign that people are understanding things and following things. Okay, so let's kind of move on, moving forward. Let's just talk real quickly about the revision process. When I said this is going to be a short session, I wasn't lying. Like, this is going to be like a 20-minute session or a 25-minute session, so hang in there, please. But here's some quick tips for revising. The first one is what I just mentioned. Make sure that you're reading through peer feedback. By the way, nobody answered my question. Did everybody get responses from peers? And what was the quality of those responses? Did people get good feedback? Because I have two concerns. One, that sometimes people don't receive responses, or that they get responses, but the person wrote two sentences. Or Damien asked, so even if the feedback we get doesn't really have us change much, we still have to totally rewrite the essay. Well, Damien, like you're in the category where you're still waiting for feedback from me, so obviously you're going to get some comments. And I don't know. I mean, maybe you wrote the most awesome essay in the world. It happens. But probably I have some recommendations on things you need to fix. But if you're asking the question, like, let's say I let's say I like the paper quite a bit, and except for small things, there's really not that much more to fix. Or your peers didn't mention many things. You're saying, do we have to totally rewrite the essay? No, of course not. If your paper is already very, very far along, revision in your case will mean smaller things. Like tightening sentences, fixing whatever grammar issues occurred, making sure that APA is flawless, etc. No, if your paper is already in strong shape, why would I ask you? That would be really cruel. Okay, okay. Damien's getting some love. Ashley says Damien's response was very helpful. He was the only one I received. Okay, good. Andy said something I know some didn't and are asking for some. I don't know what that means. That some students didn't get feedback, but we're hoping to get feedback. Corey says he got a lot of great feedback on my essay, and some were well detailed. Okay, good. Because remember last week I got kind of mean. I got kind of all grr because I really I really wanted people to take peer review seriously, and not just mail it in. So okay, good. I'm going to take that as a sign that hopefully that's what occurred. Okay, so if we're talking about the revising process, I'm sorry, I'm reading some comments in the chat. Andy says some students are still asking for some feedback. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Why would students be like the activity is over? So I'm not sure why they're asking for feedback or how they're asking for feedback. Okay, but step one in the revising process is to take all that feedback you received from your peers, from me, okay, when you receive it from me, and to sit down and decide what makes sense, what doesn't. I would encourage you to read everybody's feedback, to think it through carefully. Just because I'm the instructor doesn't mean that I'm 100% right. I'm probably 99% right. Just kidding. But no, you can decide for yourself. It's your paper, not mine. So one of your steps on the journey to becoming a writer is making these decisions. Whose feedback made sense, whose didn't, including the instructors. Yeah, but make sure you're thinking things through. I kind of admire students who stand their ground, or who disagree with maybe suggestions that I made or peers made, but don't just do so without thinking it through. Okay, it's one thing to sort of be proud and stick up for your work. It's another thing to just discard people's comments without really considering them. So yeah, step one is to really look at your feedback and decide what's helpful. By the way, I mean students often notice things that I don't. Or maybe it's a case of where I'm very, very focused on looking for, is perseverance on the page? Has the section where you have to discuss what you learned from perseverance and how it applies to you, has that been addressed? Basically, is the assignment hitting its marks, and then how well is it hitting its marks? But sometimes students notice completely different things, and I'm impressed when I read it because I'll often think, "Wow, that's 100% right," and I can't believe I didn't think of that. So yeah, don't dismiss your peers' feedback out of hand. Make sure that you're reading through everybody's comments. Okay, revising stage. So yeah, you have to sit down and revise. So what should you do? Well, thinking back to last week, we begin with global issues, okay? The big picture stuff. So, yes, if you have development issues that I pointed out, or your peers pointed out, or there are organization issues, or if I'm saying, and by the way, it's if probably if you've heard more than one person mention something, there's a good chance that it's true. So if you heard from several people that there was an issue in this paragraph, or if you heard from several people that perseverance isn't really on the page, um, etc. Okay, that's probably a pretty good indication that that's something you need to work on. But yeah, we begin with the big picture issues. Why should we worry about fixing commas or improving a word here and there if kind of more sweeping global changes need to be made first? Okay, just some some reminders. I had a slide that kind of looked like this back in week two, but it's about the basic structure of the paper. Okay, and I said in week two, you don't have to worry so much about the smaller details on the slide. Just this is the introduction. Okay, that we should have a general paragraph that kind of sets up the rest of the paper. Thesis for this class. Some people had terrific thesis statements. I'm fine just as long as there's something in the opening paragraph that makes it clear that this is your role model. He or she is an excellent example of perseverance. And that, yeah, the rest of your paper then gets into it. And then most students, of course, kind of discuss one issue at a time, right? Typically, it's one example of perseverance in one paragraph, another example of perseverance in another, a third example if they need it, and so on. And of course, we need some sort of conclusion paragraph. So just a quick reminder that hopefully your essay is following that format. If it's not, I'll probably say something in my feedback. It's not that people have to follow this structure lockstep. I'm open to people sort of playing around with these ideas. But some of these basic concepts, like we have to have some sort of opening paragraph, that we have to have some sort of closing paragraph, the paragraphs in the body focus on separate topics, that we don't just jump from topic to topic within a paragraph. Yeah, double check to make sure that your essays are following that sort of classic structure. Yeah, and by the way, a good way to check that is to sit down and when you read your paper, see if you can write down next to each of your body paragraphs what the topic or point or focus is of that paragraph. It should be one thing, and if you can clearly identify that one thing, that's probably a pretty good sign that your paragraph is on track. If you're mentioning two or three things, that's probably a sign that your paragraph is handling too many topics, is jumping around too much. Or if you struggle to identify what the topic or point of that paragraph is, that could be an indication that you're not sure either. So you were filling up words, but you weren't sure toward what end. So yeah, that's one revision strategy. Okay, to make sure that your paragraphs are holding up and that they're fitting within this overall larger structure. So okay, so issues of structure, making sure that our paragraphs are staying focused on a single idea, making sure that there's some sort of opening and closing paragraphs. That's all big picture issues. But then there's the lower order concerns as well, right? What we called local issues. And this largely involves editing, as we discussed last week. This means fixing sentences. This means choosing the right words. This means proofreading. This means, at least I like to think of it, APA, okay? The smaller stuff, which are called local issues. Again, it's not that these are unimportant, it's just that they come second. But yes, I do expect that at the local level, there's revision as well. Okay, and for those who've got their feedback, but do I have anybody here who's received feedback from me? That'd be really embarrassing if we don't have a single person in the room. Wow, I don't think anybody here has. Um, you'll see. I also mark up your paper, right? So it's in Microsoft Word format. So the first thing I do is I open up your paper and use the insert comment function to point things out. I don't point out every single error, and I typically usually do it for like the first two paragraphs or so, and then I stop. Donald says, "Don't red ink me." Yeah, it's kind of like red inking, which is why I stop after two paragraphs, because I'm so sort of what's the term? Kind of like a obsessive or anal retentive. I can notice lots of things, and yeah, it will make students thoroughly depressed if I do that for the entire paper. So, and by the way, if I marked up my own paper or one of my colleagues' papers, it would be like the same thing. Okay, nobody has perfect prose. uh, but yeah, if you see so many comments, then students get depressed. So that's why I stopped doing it after the first two paragraphs, and then encourage the student to go through the rest of the paper on their own and find and fix things as they can. But yeah, you will get some feedback from me on local issues. Okay, and yeah, I do expect people to work on those. Like it's always shocking when I I get the final project, and I think to myself, didn't I point these out? Why hasn't any of this been repaired? So yeah, big picture feedback. Excuse me, big picture concerns have to be addressed, but the local issues have to as well. Oh, and before I get to one final strategy, before we call it a night, yeah, that includes APA. Okay, APA format. I know that after this class, you never want to see APA format again, but guess what? You are going to see it again. It's a style system that's used throughout your time at Full Sail. So hopefully, you'll be able to keep in mind what you learned this month regarding APA because you will see it again. So why not get those things down perfectly this month or pretty close to perfect? So yeah, APA issues have to be repaired as well. And again, you have those materials, right? Did anybody here watch my walkthrough video? The APA walkthrough video? I get so depressed. I make these materials and then people don't watch them. Okay, Corey did. Okay, Andy did. Wow, Donald did too. Okay, three people. That's more than than most people. Yeah, I mean, if you use these tools, because people are going to watch this recording of the session after the fact, so I'm kind of plugging it here as well. Yeah, I think if you watch that, I don't know, you might have to rewatch certain parts, or maybe there are moments where I'm too fast, or you need to go back. But yeah, yeah, I think if you follow that pretty carefully, like 95% of it, your APA issues, at least in terms of layouts and the references page, should be perfect. I know in-text citations are a little bit more confusing, uh, but yeah, why not get these things down? Okay, let's wrap things up. I'm sorry, because now I'm starting to blabber. Real quick, there's what's called the last to first method. This is exactly what it's like, what it sounds. This is a really useful strategy to use when you're proofreading. It's strictly for proofreading. Okay, everything else it doesn't really work for. But if you want to catch spelling errors and stuff like that, it works terrifically. Basically, we're reading the last sentence and then the one before it, and then the one before that, and so on. What that does is it disrupts what typically happens, which is if we read the essay from top to bottom, okay, from the first sentence to the last, our brain has a nasty habit of just reading right past errors, okay, or even filling in blanks if there's a missing word. I once was in class. This guest had a really fun activity where he put us in groups and gave us a paragraph and told us there are 7 errors in this paragraph. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to find them, and you can work as a group. And for the life of us, even though there were like 4 or 5 groups in the entire class, nobody could find all 7 errors. When I say errors, I don't mean things like, oh, a comma's in the right place. No, no, I'm talking about like proofreading errors, okay? Like a misspelling or a missing word. Yeah, no, we're not talking about like esoteric grammar concepts, just really basic things. So, for example, let's say the expression a pot of gold, okay? But the word of would be missing and yet we couldn't see it. Why? Because when you're reading, your brain actually fills in the blanks. If not, reading would take 10 times longer than it does. Part of the reason why we're able to read is because the brain is actually ahead of us. It's already anticipating. It's already familiar with so many structures, so many phrases. Because by the time you reach the age of 10, you've already read so much that your brain automatically kind of knows patterns. But that also means that you're able to miss really, really obvious things, like when we were put into those groups for that activity. Like, how could you not notice an obviously missing word? If you use this last to first method up here on the screen, you can avoid that. Okay, because we're working one sentence at a time and we're reading them kind of backwards, out of order, which helps the brain not do that. Okay, and yeah, reading last to first is a method for proofreading, grammatical errors. Editors use it. It's a common tool, so use it yourself. It's a little bit lengthy, but yeah, why not do it if you're especially if proofreading is a challenge for you. And real quickly, a final reminder: step away from your project from time to time. Okay, don't you feel that sometimes you just have to get away, that you just have to go for a walk, or buy a taco, or play a video game for 30 minutes or watch an episode of your favorite television show. Then you can come back to work. That's a good thing. So please, yeah, leave yourself enough time so that you can take these breaks because at a certain point, everything's just going to look like mush. I have a writing background, specifically a creative writing background in fiction writing. And yeah, there are some times where you just have to walk away from whatever you're working on. Go to sleep, wake up the next morning, look at it, and then you can see it with a fresh set of eyes. That's another really, really useful trick. Okay, uh, there's a plug for the Full Sail Writing Center. Take advantage of it if you wish. But that's really the end of the session, so I'm going to hang out a little bit to answer questions if you have them. Okay? But if you're comfortable with everything that we've gone over, you're allowed to go enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks so much for attending. I'm going to go ahead and type the Writing Center address into the chat for whoever wants it. You're welcome, Bernard. It is Writing Center at fullsail.com. And the Writing Center is available for anyone. It's not just for campus students. You can set up online sessions. So, and it uses GoToTraining just like we're using now. So you can work one-on-one with a tutor. Not enough people take advantage of the system. And you used to get what, GPS points for it, or is that what they're called for your first visit? So I think that might still be true. So if you care about those kinds of things. Okay, but questions, I'm here to answer them if you have them. Anything at all. The month, McGraw Hill stuff, weekly check ins, essays, grading issues. I mean, you can ask me other ways too. If you think of something, you can always send me a message. But I'm here live, so if you have a question. Okay, you're welcome, Donald. Okay, thank you, Andy. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.